Welcome to our channel. In this video, we'll discuss the Generation Z protests in Morocco, which have become the talk of the town. If you're interested in understanding how an entire generation can change the political and social landscape, you've come to the right place. Generation Z is a new generation of young people who have taken to the streets demanding their rights. They reject the old molds of parties and unions and seek immediate solutions to their problems. In this video, we explore how this movement began, its demands, and how society and the government have responded. We will also discuss how these protests are not just a passing phenomenon, but rather part of a global wave of youth protests. We will explore how Generation Z in Morocco is adopting new methods of organizing and communicating, making it difficult for authorities to contain them. For days now, Morocco has been experiencing an unprecedented wave of protests led by an invisible movement calling itself Generation Z. This movement has suddenly emerged from the virtual world to become a real force on the streets, crossing cities and villages and expressing long accumulated social anger. This movement, which originated in closed groups on apps like Discord and then spread like wildfire on Facebook, TikTok, and Instagram, has chosen to raise purely social demands: improving health services, ensuring free and quality public education, providing job opportunities for unemployed youth, and achieving social justice. At the same time, however, it has declared its refusal to join political parties and unions or adhere to ideological agendas, making it appear as a new political entity that rejects old molds. The authorities' response was swift and severe from the moment protesters took to the streets, and the demonstrations were met with excessive violence. Videos documenting the arrests of young men and women, mothers, minors, and even infants being violently loaded like sheep into police cars poured fuel on the fire of anger and triggered a dynamic that multiplied the scope of the protests. Faced with this wave, the government, political parties, and unions seemed outside the political context. A heavy silence, a complete absence from the scene, and a heavy security presence attempting alone to contain the streets' anger. Ironically, this absence reinforced the image of the Generation Z movement as a new collective actor, possessing political energy outside of traditional institutions. This phenomenon cannot be separated from a broader context. The new generation of protest is not a purely Moroccan invention, but rather part of a global wave that began in South Asia, from Nepal, Bangladesh, and Sri Lanka, before reaching sub-Saharan Africa in Kenya and Madagascar. Similar youth uprisings were led by members of Generation Z, using the same digital tools and the same protest language that combines the simplicity of demands with the boldness of their stance. Today, Morocco is the first Arab and North African country to face this wave, placing it at the heart of a global phenomenon that is redefining politics outside its traditional channels. A new generation of young people, immersed in the virtual world, rejects ideological labels, yet possesses a keen political awareness, a remarkable capacity for rapid organization, and tactical flexibility. They refuse to wait and insist on concrete, immediate demands and immediate solutions. On the streets, they operate with flexible tactics that confuse security forces, scattered and simultaneous protests, rapid changes in routes and protest locations, and a heavy reliance on live broadcasting techniques and real-time coordination between small groups operating separately, simultaneously, and in multiple locations within the same city to confuse, distract, and focus security forces. Here, it appears that the TikTok generation, long portrayed as passive and isolated, is reinventing politics with its own means, breaking the barrier of fear in a public space that had been experiencing a state of paralysis. However, the Moroccan context lends a unique character to this movement, which has its local roots. For years, society has been experiencing a state of stagnation, with increasing repression of public freedoms, the emptiness of political parties, the weakening of unions, the existence of formal institutions that lack credibility, resulting from elections whose integrity has been disputed, and the decline of public debate due to the crackdown on independent journalism in favor of trivial media funded by public funds. This has been accompanied by a difficult economic and social situation due to rising inflation, rising unemployment rates, worsening class disparities, widespread corruption, and the absence of social justice. Furthermore, massive investments have been directed at the expense of basic services, especially symbolic projects such as the 2030 World Cup. Meanwhile, villages and marginalized areas suffer from a lack of water, roads, and basic services, all of which have fueled social unrest. This background has made the emergence of Generation Z resemble a suppressed explosion for years, rather than a mere youthful improvisation. Moroccan history itself confirms the cyclical nature of these upheavals. Since the bloody events of Casablanca in 1965, the country has witnessed major waves of protest in 1981, 1984, 1991, and 2011. Each time, the authorities responded with a combination of violence and partial openness, before quickly returning to a policy of control. The result is a buildup of resentment that generates new, often more powerful, explosions. It's as if the country lives to the rhythm of social earthquakes that recur every few years, subside for a period, then return stronger due to a blocked horizon. What is happening today appears to be a continuation of this pattern, but with an entirely new social actor. A generation born and raised in the digital world, possessing communication and organizational tools that are radically different from those of previous generations, finding it difficult for traditional authorities to contain them using the same methods. The paradox is that this generation, despite its rejection of political parties and unions, is not apolitical. On the contrary, its political awareness is advanced, but it distrusts institutions it considers corrupt or lacking credibility and legitimacy. This is an anti-establishment generation, not in the sense of indifference, but rather in the sense of seeking an alternative horizon outside the existing structures. This particular point worries the authorities, because it means that all the usual mediations have lost their validity. Political parties are no longer able to play the role of mediator, nor are unions able to control the street. The equation has become straightforward. Protesting youth versus security forces, in the absence of any channels of dialogue or mediation representatives. Today, the situation is even more complex in the absence of any official interlocutor with the legitimacy to engage in dialogue with the protesters. Only the monarchy remains, objectively and symbolically, capable of opening the door to dialogue and a solution. Continued repression may temporarily stifle the demonstrations, but it will only heighten anger and tarnish Morocco's international image, as it prepares to host major sporting events that are supposed to cement its image as a country of stability and openness. Only a political solution can bring about a breakthrough, releasing political prisoners, reviewing the security approach and restructuring a security sector that has transformed Morocco into a police state, opening the door to a free press and expanding the scope of public debate, and rebuilding trust between state and society through bold reforms that include early elections and more democratic electoral laws. Ultimately, the ball is not in the youth's court alone, but in the state's court, which, if it continues to deny the facts and waste time, will find itself facing even more violent and deeper waves. The current moment is a rare opportunity to reconnect the broken ties between government and society, but it is an opportunity that requires political courage and sovereign decisions to redraw a new horizon before the rupture is permanently entrenched. The current moment, then, is a pivotal one. It exposes the limits of a model based on security control and investment in external image, which focuses more on appearances than on achievements, at the expense of addressing chronic internal structural deficiencies. It also presents Morocco with the challenge of recognizing that politics is not reduced to formal institutions and pretty facades, but rather means opening a real horizon for public debate, accountability, and reform. Generation Z is not a passing specter, but a mirror reflecting a long-standing social and political suffocation. Ignoring this mirror or attempting to shatter it through repression will not hide the truth. A new generation has decided to reclaim public space and raise fundamental questions about justice, freedom, and dignity. Many questions arise. How long can the policy of denial continue? Will government silence or a security approach suffice to cool the streets? And to what extent will Morocco be able to extinguish this spark and transform it into the beginning of a new, more open and bold political cycle, rather than turning it into yet another episode in a long history of postponed shocks and recurring explosions? Previous experiences inside and outside Morocco suggest the opposite. A security solution may buy time, but it loses the battle for legitimacy and reform in the long term. If you like the video, don't forget to click the like button and share it with your friends. We also invite you to subscribe to the channel and activate the bell button to stay up to date with all our updates. We would love to hear your opinions in the comments. What do you think of the Generation Z movement? Do you think it will bring about real change in Morocco?